Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated will be filming, recording, and photographing this event for use in Delta promotional videos, photography, advertisements, social media platforms, web pages, and other future Delta events as the case may be. Via continued participation in and by continuing to remain logged into this event, hereby acknowledges that participant may be photographed, filmed, or otherwise recorded while on the premises of the event. Grants Delta, its successors, assigns, and licensees irrevocable consent to include participants' name, likeness, photographic image, mannerisms, and voice or other recording in the production or for exploitation for any purpose whatsoever in any and all media now known or hereafter devised throughout the universe in perpetuity without compensation and or credit. Represents, warrants, and agrees that Delta holds and shall forever hold all display, publication, and ownership rights, licenses, and privileges to any and all media, whether in law or in equity, which may be ascertained, registered, or in any way utilized with respect thereto, and waives, releases, and transfer, as the case may be, any and all such rights, whether in law or equity, as may be necessary or required to effectuate Delta's establishment of ownership. Participant further agrees to abide by and comply with any and all terms of use and or additional participation rules as applicable and specified during relevant sections of the program and acknowledges, understands, and agrees that violation of such participation rules shall result in legal recourse and disciplinary action.
Hello, and welcome to our Financial Fortitude Fridays. This is an award-winning series dedicated to economic development, and we are very proud with the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated to present this series to you. Economic development is one of our programmatic thrusts within our sorority, and I'd like to introduce Angelina McCarthy-Bryan to give you some more information about this series.
We are so excited that you have joined us on today. We are excited because this amazing series, Building a Strong Financial Foundation, has its inception since February of 2021 and has progressed on and will continue into the future. This series has focused on introducing and the intro to building a generational wealth, focusing on estate planning, understanding long-term care insurance, 7 strategies for transforming your finances, fundamental principles for a successful financial future, taking an in-depth look into estate planning, closing the wealth gap, understanding cryptocurrency 101, mindset and money management, the whys behind our financial decisions, closing the wealth gap, real estate investing, obtaining equity in your residential properties, and the buying, selling, and real estate investing process. An in-depth look into estate planning, overcoming financial setbacks, a panel discussion, estate and business planning reimagined, safeguarding your finances, protecting against elder financial abuse, and franchise blueprint from vision to profit, and so much more. The reasoning we bring this information to the community is to empower the community, to ensure that our community understands that they are not alone in their financial journey. And the information that we provide is for educational purposes and informational purposes, but ultimately it's to help, to guide, and to give you confidence in your decisions. It is always important, as our disclaimer shares, that you know that you should contact your financial team, your tax advisors, your estate planners, and more in order to get guidance as to how you should proceed forward. We always like to give a personal thanks to those who have helped this series continue on. to our current president, Helene L. Fisher, our current PPD chair, Regina Ware, to myself, Angelina McCarthy Bryan, Financial Fortitude Chair, to our past president, Lenore Simmons, to our past PPD Chair, Joy Garber, and to our past Financial Fortitude Chair, Pansy Davis, we like to say thank you. We want to give special acknowledgement to SARs who have made a significant impact in the program, to Renee Moore, Elsie Daniels, Charlene Eberhardt, Deshawn Robinson Chu, and LaQuinda Christian Thornton. Thank you. And of course, to find out more information, please ensure that you watch and visit us at www.fcacdst.org/events for more. Stay tuned. Tonight, we will be discussing Franchise Blueprint from Vision to Profit with one of our very own, Toya Evans. And what's exciting about tonight is that this is one of our series. We have done, I would say, about 24 series that have come within the Building a Strong Financial Foundation series. So the more, the merrier. And with every session we have brought on many presenters who have educated us as a sorority and chapter, and most importantly, have touched the community. And so we are excited to give you a little bit of a look back and take you back from how we started and how we've gotten to where we are today. So in our humble beginnings with the series, we started with using the fundamental principles to create your own blueprint for a successful financial future. This was one of our beginning series that we started. We then walked through building generational wealth, and we had guest presenters with Douglas Eze and Eugene Mitchell. And we also brought about our estate, or one of the estate attorneys who've spoken on our platform, Amy D. Griffin. In addition to that, we have done long-term care insurance, in which I presented, in addition to 7 strategies of transforming your finances, which Jason Howe also presented with us there. In addition to that, we also have brought about, again, the Building a Strong Financial Foundation, because this blueprint is something that we like to remind the community about as we step into each session. Amy was asked to come back to take a deeper, in-depth look into estate planning, and she discussed things like looking at your trusts, your wills, your power of attorneys, and your medical directives. This was a panel discussion, Closing the Wealth Gap. We brought Eugene Mitchell, Jason Howe, Tremaine Wills, Amy Griffin, and I to come and talk about closing the wealth gap. And this was such an exciting session that we actually brought it back again, and you will see where. We also have spoken about understanding cryptocurrency, where we brought Ansela Ramsey to share with us, and she did an excellent job at giving us an in-depth view on that. In addition to that, we combined forces with a total of 4 chapters to discuss Closing the Wealth Gap Reimagined. And this was all of us coming together. There were over almost 240 attendees at that event. Very, very, very exciting. Now, we wanted a deeper understanding from a psychological aspect as to the whys behind our financial decisions. And we brought about Kavette Minor-Kane, who discussed exactly that. Well, we even dove into real estate, investing, obtaining equity in your residential property. And we brought Olubukala Buki Dele to come and discuss that with us and to tell us even more about how to obtain equity in our properties. This was such a well-received session that we brought about Melvin Landry Jr. and Blair Binder, who gave us an in-depth look into Real Estate 101. They discussed everything from personal home buying, real estate, investing in real estate. And I can tell you it was such a well-received session. Many came back. We oftentimes bring back Amy because she has taken such a deep look into our sessions and shared with us even more about the fundamentals when it comes to estate planning. Here was us talking about building and understanding overcoming financial setbacks. So we always like to talk about the greatness of finance and things that we need to be doing, but sometimes we need to talk about things like bankruptcy, lending, protecting your assets, wealth management, foreclosure, consumer protection, pitfalls, and restoration of credit. And here we brought attorney Eric Goodman, we brought Cherie Warwick and Pamela Sams to come, and they did a panel discussion. How exciting that was. Now, as if real estate wasn't exciting, we also brought estate planning and business planning reimagined. So imagine not just planning for your estate within your personal finances, but also planning when it comes to estate planning for your business and succession planning. So again, another highly esteemed and recognized session. And we brought about Lily Nakor, who did an excellent job presenting. Well, we literally said to ourselves, what more could financial fortitude do? And this was an exciting session. This was about safeguarding your finances, protecting, and this was against elder abuse, financial abuse, exploitation, and victimization. And we brought about Shannon Taylor, who happens to be the Henrico County Commonwealth Attorney. And we also brought about Stuart Von Cannon, who was also discussing with us many things that he sees from an FBI standpoint and a detective standpoint. So a very well-received session. Most of our wonderful presenters are authors. So these are many of their books that they have shared with us and have received for many of our attendees. Now, this is important. This is an informational presentation. Please note that individual situations can vary. Neither the information presented nor any opinion expressed constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any product, service, or specific security. Neither the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated or the members of the Financial Fortitude Committee are endorsing any individual, investment, product, or service discussed. Please consult with your financial advisor, financial services professional, tax, legal, or accounting professional before making any decisions. Helene L. Fisher, President of the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Now, remember, in our sessions, we share with people that most people don't plan to fail. They fail to plan. And so this is our attempt at giving information that can assist you. Now, without further ado, we are going to dive right in to our bio for our guest speaker this evening, Toya Evans. And we are excited to see that there are almost 80 of you on, and we hope that you will stay to the end, because again, if you stay to the end, you get all the great nuggets that we're all excited to hear on this evening. With that, I'm going to now share Toya's bio. And again, know that this is also an opportunity during the session for you to put any questions that you may have into the session, into the chat. Your questions will be answered, and we will go through them closer to the end of the session. So please, as a thought comes up or a question comes up, do enter it in the chat. And towards the end, we will also put our evaluations for you to please click on and tell us how the session was. Tell us what you would like to hear more about. Most of our sessions come from the comments that are provided from our attendees. Toya L. Evans is a seasoned executive with over 35 years of proven marketing and product management expertise in both business to business and business to consumer sectors. She has worked with some of the largest global brands, including Microsoft, General Electric, and America Online, driving over $355 million in revenue through the technology products she led. In 2015, she and her daughters formed Healthy Living Ventures LLC to develop, operate, and manage franchises that focus on healthy products and lifestyles, with an intent on bringing these brands to Prince George's County, Maryland, an affluent but product-starved area. Their portfolio includes 6 tropical smoothie cafes, 3 hand and stone massage and facial spas, 2 more in development, and 1, and I say the med spa, 2 more in development. They now service their members and guests throughout the DMV area and are expanding their VOs, which is the med spas, to markets throughout Virginia as well. Ms. Evans and her daughters are so passionate about helping others learn about franchising as a path to building generational wealth. They are launching an online course, So You Want to Buy a Franchise? Question mark. And frequently host master classes and consults with individuals looking to educate them on franchising and assist them in identifying and purchasing franchises. Ms. Evans earned a BSBA in marketing from George Washington University and an MBA from Howard University. She participates at the national leadership level for Tropical Smoothie Cafe, serving on the marketing committee, recommending strategies across the brand, and on the franchise council representing the concerns of franchisees throughout the system. She serves on the profit, asset, and growth committees with the VO Med Spa, and she is also a member of the advisory board for the Multi-Unit Franchise Conference, and most recently was named chairperson for the Black Franchise Leadership Council with the International Franchise Association. Ms. Evans has been recognized as the Franchisee of the Year and MVP by both the Multi-Unit Franchising Conference and International Franchise Association. She is active in her community and in her church, which is Reed Temple AME Church, and her sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Her proudest role is as a mother to her daughters and business partners, Lauren and Chanel, and her grandchildren, whom she is tirelessly working for in building a family legacy. Jaden, Avery, Ryan, Zoe, and Knox. Without further ado, and right before we bring on Toya, we would like for you to take a quick look at our survey here, and we want you to answer this question. What percentage of franchises are still in business after 2 years? 15%, 65%, 92%, 100%? And please answer this poll question. We believe in participation here. So remember, there's a reason to answer the question, and you'll see why as we get close to the ending. And don't forget, place all of your questions in the chat. We will get to it. Okay. We're going to end our poll right now, but I'll tell you what our numbers are currently. 51% of our attendees say it's 15%. 41% say it's 65%. 8% say it's 92%, and 0% say it's 100%. So again, right now, what's in the lead is 15%. Just remember that. Without further ado, thank you so much. Toya Evans, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me to share my story and talk to you about something that I really am truly passionate about. And it's been one that I've been passionate about for a long time, but it was a long time coming. because I was very caught up in chasing the corporate dream and doing all of that stuff. And then one day, my daughter says, "We're sick of your life," actually, is what they said. And that life included traveling all the time, always in meetings, and never as available as they wanted me to be as adult children. And so we decided, hey, why don't we do something together? And that's how the franchising thing came about, because at the time we were all still working very high pressure corporate jobs ourselves, but we wanted to say what could we start that would allow us to begin to work for ourselves and to build something for our families. And franchising became that way, primarily because we still had a job and we didn't have the brain space to do a corporate job, and then also start a business from scratch. And they had seen their dad and I do that. And it was a lot more work than having something like a franchise, which is just a playbook. So fast forward, we had nightly conversations. We brainstormed about what types of things were important to us and what we wanted to be about. And you'll hear me talk about this a little bit more in my presentation, but it was all about something that we could be excited about every day, waking up to go out and do. And that is going to be very important as you think about franchising as an option for you. And then within franchising, what is it that you want to do? So 10 years in the business now, 9 years operating. And although I'd like to retire, I've been told I can't right now. So I'm going to stay in the grind a little bit longer. So I'm going to, can someone let me share my screen then? I'll start. So I entitled this The Franchising Journey because it truly is a journey and it's a never-ending journey. But what I thought I would do tonight is just kind of share some very high-level thoughts about what that journey looks like and things that you could consider if you are interested in moving into franchising as an opportunity for yourself and your family. So I wanted to talk about just level setting what, next slide, please. What the franchise model is, talk about the pros and cons. Is franchising something that's really right for you? And then give you an idea of kind of a timeline in the journey of what it takes from the time you decide you want to become a franchisee to selecting your brand and really getting open. And then always just words of wisdom. And my daughter always calls this, what do you wish you knew when you got started that you know now? And that's an ongoing thing. So for those of you who are not familiar, franchise is really just a business model, and it allows you for a fee to be able to purchase the rights to start and operate and use the trademarks of a brand, and more importantly, the operational playbook they have. And that's very different than having your own independent brand where you pretty much have to do everything and understand all of the mechanics, standards, operating procedures, and everything to operate your business. You are given a playbook by the franchisee for your fee, and you begin to operate with support from them along the way. And I thought I'd share tonight some interesting facts because I always look at this in a different light a little bit. But if you think about, there's so many brands out there in terms of units that are franchised, about 850,000 of them. And I always say there are many things that you buy right now, whether that be services, products, etc., that many people don't even know are franchises. And that is from hotels to pest control to carpet cleaning to fire restoration, auto services, just so many different types of franchises that are out there. And most recently, the International Franchise Association has said that, franchising as a whole will actually grow it faster than the U.S. economy. And that is projected to increase about 1.9%, according to the Congressional Budget Office. And then within franchising, those areas that are growing the fastest are personal services, retail, food, products and services. I happen to be in two of those categories with the brands that I have right now. Um, and looking at where franchising is expanding the most, and this will be very important as you start to talk to franchisors about opportunities with different brands. They have target areas, and there's always some level of incentives that might be around if they're looking to go into a certain area. And then there's also the downside of that is that they're such popular areas that those territories might be sold out very quickly. And so if you look at what the IFA is projecting for this year, they're saying that, because of low cost of living, business-friendly policies, the Southeast and the Southwest are going to be the growth areas with franchising. However, if you take a look at what some of the top 10 fastest growing states are, we have two of them right here in our backyard, which is Virginia and Maryland. So that's very exciting for folks that are on this call, if you're in the DMV, to know that we still have lots of opportunity for all types of franchising in our market right now. Next slide, please. So I like to always show this because in addition to having all types of brands that are out there for you to consider investing in, I pulled up some celebrities to see just how entrenched they are themselves in the franchising world. So if you're familiar with rapper Rick Ross, he owns about 26, I think my last count, of Wingstops. Chris Brown owns 14 Burger Kings. Robin Dixon, if you know her from the Real Housewives of Potomac, is a Glow 30. They are a facial and aesthetics franchise. Drew Brees, who's former NFL player, very big into Jimmy John's, has multiple units of that. He's an investor and a franchisee in an upcoming bowl called Ever Bowl. My nieces actually have invested in that franchise. They're doing 3 of them in the Richmond area. It competes a little bit with Tropical Smoothie in terms of having bowls and smoothies. And then my new hero in franchising, I had some older ones, but Shaq is that person right now because he is not only a franchisee with Auntie Annie and Anytime Fitness and Papa John's. He has so many, but he's becoming a franchisor, meaning he actually now has a playbook that he's selling out to others through Big Chicken. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. And then looking at the roles of each, the franchisor and the franchisee. So on the franchisor side, that is a person that if you are looking to go into business and license a brand, that you would be looking to the franchisor who will give you their playbook for a fee, as I mentioned before. And for that fee, you can use their trademarks, their trade names, any marketing materials. You get access to their operational support team. They frequently will have people that will walk you through the entire process from the time you sign the franchise agreement until you get open. And then they have another team that supports you once you're open to make sure that you are successful. You have their advertising, their marketing. They help you find the appropriate real estate. And very importantly is they set the brand standards. And that's going to be very important when we talk about is franchising the avenue for you, because those brand standards will not be violated under any circumstances. So I like to say if you can follow rules, you'll be a great franchisee. If you can't, you probably should be an independent business owner. And an example of that is I had a client that came to one of my tropical smoothies like every single day, and she decided to go into business for herself, and she was baking carrot cake cupcakes. And so she says, "Hey, I come to your store every day. I'm always servicing your business. Would you mind if I set up and bring my carrot cake cupcakes to your store, and I can sell them in here? They'd be great for breakfast." And the value prop was certainly attractive. And I said to her, "I can't." And she got really upset with me. And she said, why can't you? I said, I spend money with you every day. And I said, unless you have the capacity to produce those same carrot cake cupcakes. And at the time we had about 1,200 units across the country, so that the other 1,199 can sell them, then I can't do it. And so that's what I mean about following brand standards. We all have to look and feel the same. I like to say your French fries have to taste the same in Las Vegas as they do in Bowie, Maryland. So that's very important to understand that role that the franchisor plays, and they protect that brand at all costs. And then on the franchisee side, you are really running your own business, but you're running your business under the auspices, if you will, of all those things I just talked about. And so the exciting part and the pros of being in franchising is that you do have a proven concept. You don't really have to think about how to do the business because they tell you how to do it. You don't have to build your brand because the brand is established, and the franchisor continues to support that brand through marketing, awareness campaigns, and things that will help drive your sales. You are going to be responsible for building your business, not the brand. You get training and support. As I mentioned, like right now in all of my brands, I have an operational partner that meets with us on a regular basis to talk about sales projections, training for our teams, events, compliance, all types of things to make sure that you are successful in your business. I mentioned already about real estate and site selections and the marketing. They help you with understanding your financials, where you should be, how you're benchmarked against everyone else in the system. And this last part, I always like to stress a little bit in terms of a real pro, in that if you're very new to a business, you don't have experience in there, and you just have an idea that you want to do something, the franchise is an opportunity for you to be more bankable. And what I mean by that is, if I went to a bank and said, hey, I'd like to open Toya, Lauren, and Chanel smoothie shop, they might ask me things like, well, what kind of experience do you have with smoothies? Have you ever run a restaurant before? All those types of questions. But when I went to a bank and say I'm opening a tropical smoothie cafe franchise, then, ears perk up. They're a little bit more interested in talking to you about it. And particularly because most of the brands have already established relationships with banks. The banks understand how the business is set up. They understand the financials behind it. And so they can get behind that and feel comfortable lending, even if you don't have any experience. My experience working outside of when I was in college and high school had nothing to do with restaurants, and neither did my children's. We all worked in retail. And so that was, something, really having something that would be bankable. And when we went to go and get a loan, we talked more about our business experience in corporate, and that was important because they already knew about the brand. Some of the cons, your investment can vary widely based on what you want to do. If you look at I'll look at some of the restaurant areas, any brands that have anything to do with frying, heavy restaurant equipment, you're talking about investments that could be north of like $1.5 million of investment. If you look at something like a home-based business, it could be as little as $5,000 to $10,000. So your investment will vary widely. And I always like to say, all franchises are not created equal. So you should never really look at a franchise and select it just based on what the franchise fee is or how much it costs to get in it. I always like to say nothing invested, really nothing gained. And so you have to think about it from that. And that's kind of wrapped around what you expect to get out of it. And if you expect to get a lot out of it, you oftentimes have to put a lot in. It's not like you can just buy, $1,000, $5,000 franchise and expect that it's going to yield you a huge return. Perpetual royalty fees, you never get rid of those. I like to say Thursday is the day, because every Thursday, every last one of my brands goes right into my account and takes their money. And you don't get a break from those. You have very limited creativity and flexibility, and that's because you have to follow the playbook. Now, where we have creativity is that how we actually operate our business. So an example of that would be, I know that I have to spend a certain percentage of my money every single week of my sales, every single week on marketing. But how I choose to market the business, that becomes up to us. And so my daughter, for example, has ventured well into the digital marketing area. And she's been so successful with it that she's consulting with other people in the brand now about how to do it, how to get people in the door, how to get them coming back. So we had flexibility to do that, but we don't have flexibility to introduce new value propositions or say things about the brand that they haven't approved, if that makes sense. You have restrictions on real estate. You can't put a franchise anywhere you want. Every single brand has a target demographic, and they are constantly evaluating the consumers that live in areas, what the household incomes are, and they build these psychographics of profiles of who they believe their customers are, and they like to have real estate that kind of aligns with that. And you also have restrictions and fees when you sell your business. You typically will have to pay a transfer fee Some of the franchises will ask for a percentage even of your sales. So those are some of the restrictions that are associated with it. Now, is it right for you? I mentioned this a little bit earlier, the first one out, can you follow rules? Are you really willing to follow an established system? Are you organized and able to execute? Because you have the playbook, but it will not do anything for you unless you make it work for you. Can you lead, and are you interested in leading and developing a team? We have a very diverse group of employees, and we have right now about 170 employees across all the brands, all the way from a 15 and 16-year-old a high school student to nurse practitioners, registered nurses, and everybody in between. And they all need something different from you. And they all have different reasons for why they're with you. I like to say some of them are with you for the ride, and some you're just a stop along their ride. And so being able to, lead and develop a team and get the best out of them is something that you have to do daily. And how driven are you to build your business? So you can't just write a check for the business and expect that you write a check and you open your doors and business will come to you. It is a daily grind. And I do mean a daily grind. So you have to be really driven to do that. And then asking yourself, how adaptable are you? Because that kind of ties a little bit into, following this established systems. And things will change, as brands look at new markets and new opportunities. You don't necessarily get a choice to say, I want to do this portion of the business, but I don't want to do that. So you have to bend with the brand. And you're constantly learning. So these are some of the things I think, I always like to tell people, if you're thinking about franchising, you have to be honest with yourself and say, is this something that I can get behind, embrace, and make the best of the investment that I'm going to make? Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the journey. The first thing is, if you've decided that franchising does work for you and you'd like to pursue it further, you have to select a brand. And like I said before, not all franchises are created equally. My daughters and I went through a whole lot of different things. We had a brainstorming session almost every single night to come up with what spoke to us, from home health care to, we did medical billing, we looked at drug testing, just so many different things. And we decided to anchor in on healthy lifestyles and products. So I like to say to anyone who's interested in looking at the different brands is to find, an industry that interests you. And that's that one that says, okay, can I wake up every day and be excited about that? Good example is, I got a text at 5 o'clock yesterday from my regional manager who says, I need you to cancel a catering order for tomorrow because I decided to take off and I can't come to work tomorrow. And I don't have anybody else to do the catering order. And the catering order was over $3,000. I'm like, well, I can't call a client at 5 o'clock and say we can't do it. And she says, well, I just can't do it. So 4 o'clock this morning, I'm up because I have a customer to serve. And there's so many. I talked to someone else today who was a crumble cookie, and they said yesterday they had the same issue. A $2,000 order came in, and this owner is baking cookies at 2 o'clock in the morning to service their clients. So those are the things when I say, does it interest you? Can you get behind it? Because the buck all stops with you. The other thing is to look at how much money do you have to invest, because there's a whole range of franchises that you can purchase. And it's all driven by, what percentage of that total investment do you have available to do it? And really important is, how much time do you have to devote to the business? Are you going to be the person that's going to be starting the business, kicking it off, and really driving it? Do you anticipate trying to find a business where you could hire a manager? I like to call it just write a check and have them run it for you. But that really determines like the types of brands that you can look at. And there are many franchisors out there who, if you are not planning to be full-time in the business yourself, then you can pretty much be guaranteed that they won't even accept you, because just because you say you want to buy a brand doesn't mean that they're going to accept you. It's like a dating game, I like to say. You know, you talk to a lot of franchisors and you see, you know, which one kind of speaks to you and their values align with your values. Um, and that was very important for us. All the brands that we're in, we talked continuously in the beginning, and we still do with the leaderships of those brands. And we bought them because the things that were important to us were also reflective in those brands. And training and support, how much is available to you, how much revenue, percentage of their revenue has the franchisor allocated to training? Are you confident in the leadership team? You know, because you're making a serious investment in doing a franchise, and the brand standards, the operating manual, the training support, all the things that I've been talking about so far are driven by that leadership team. And they can make you or they could break you, quite frankly, that leadership team there. What is the financial performance of the brand? And this is very important. I'll talk a little bit about the franchise disclosure document here shortly. But within that document, you get to find out information about the brand. How many units do they have open? How many folks have entered the franchise system and exited? And how much money do they have available in their balance sheet to be able to support? I consulted with a young lady, excuse me, about 2 years ago, and she was about to purchase a franchise, and she was going to be maybe franchise number 2 or 3 or something like that. And she said she was signing like the next day. And I said, oh, can we have a conversation? Like, you know, how much due diligence have you done? And long story short, we had a conversation. She sent me over their FDD, and I said, in good faith, I can't really recommend you do this. You asked for my opinion, so I'm telling you right now. And she said, well, why would you say that? I thought you were a fan of franchising. Like, I absolutely am, but did you even look at this? Because this franchisor is losing money. So there's no way he has money to support you to grow your business. There's no dollars. He's operating at a loss for the last 2 years. And she said, quite frankly, she hadn't looked at it. But that would be one to kind of take a look at that performance of that brand and how other people are performing before you make an investment. You know, information is power, so you have to do your due diligence to do that. Another thing is, will you have a partner, or are you going to do this solo? That makes a big difference in terms of the type of franchise you are going to buy. As I mentioned, if a franchisor is going to require you to be full-time dedicated to that brand. So lots of things there. I happen to have 2 partners. We're all equal partners, and we have different lanes, as my children like to say. So I am the managing partner with the franchisors, I'm sorry. And what that really means is they want one person, no matter how many people are on the franchise agreement, to be the person that they interact with. We used to say in one of my old jobs, they want, you know, one throat to choke or one back to pat. And that really is true. And it's really just around brand compliance. If you are in a business that also has regulatory compliance, which all of my brands do, they are holding you accountable for that. I also go find money. So I'm always out begging, as I like to say, and looking for money to do our projects. And then I do the construction and make sure that all the stores are operating after that. My other daughter is all things human resources, payroll, handbook, and the other one is everything about selling and branding. And so we have very defined lanes. We can cross them, but we try not to. And so if you think about it, I have 2 partners. If you do it by yourself, all those things that I just mentioned that we've split out into across 3 people would be things that you would have to consider. And last but not least is, what is your exit strategy? And I think we started off our series tonight saying most people don't plan to fail. You know, they fail to plan. And certainly going into business, you should be thinking about getting out of the business and what that exit strategy looks like, because that may influence your decision about what brand to do as well. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at like what franchisors want. They all look for the same type of profile in a potential franchisee. The first is, capital and credit. Do you have the money to invest? And do you have the credit to be able to go get a loan if you need to? So I mentioned before that a lot of the franchisors have already established relationships with banks. So number one bank source is the U.S. government Small Business Administration. And so lots of the franchisors try to align themselves very quickly with SBA because it's a fast path to getting you approved for a loan and getting you up and running. They like to have doors open sooner rather than later. So they have established relationships there. They may have other lending sources that they have shared their financials with. Those brands are comfortable lending to any of those. And so they know what those credit requirements are. So as a part of the application process, they ask you things like, they have you fill out a personal financial statement. They want to know if you've had any negative experiences in your past, tax liens, bankruptcies. And they're asking those questions because they are already thinking, is this application worth our time? Meaning would you not be a good candidate, but can you be a great candidate and also get financing so that you can get a door open? So those things are very important. They typically will have minimal requirements by way of your net worth and your cash available on hand. And so they're looking for that cash available on hand because they want to know, do you have money to write them a check primarily for the franchise agreement, but also have the funding that you would need as required by their lenders to do your down payment. And then more importantly, after that, that you would have available for working capital. So if you are going to be leaving your job, as an example, do you have enough money to support you while you're ramping your business so that you can pay your bills and grow your business at the same time? So that's what they look for. So capital and credit. And then they also look at experience. And that experience doesn't necessarily have to be, do you have industry experience? And I mentioned to you that neither myself or my daughters had experience in restaurants, and yet we are in restaurants. My youngest daughter actually worked at Lansdowne Spa in high school, but that doesn't necessarily qualify for having experience working at a spa, and yet we're in a spa. And certainly not a nurse, I'm not a medical professional, and yet I own a medical spa. So it's not about that, but it is about what your experience has been in your career. Are you good in operations? Are you good in marketing? So they're looking for things like that. And do you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Meaning, are you going to be driven to grow your business? Because growing your business is extremely important to the franchisor for three reasons, I'll say that. One, you help them expand their presence. Two, they dip into your account every Thursday and get their royalty dollars. And then three, you help them actually sell more franchises, because the more successful they can show prospective franchisees that the ones that are currently in the system are doing well, then that's an easier sell for them. So they look for people who are driven to just grow their business. And then the third thing they're looking for is really you. And what are you going to bring to the table? How will you add value to their brand? So I mentioned before that it's kind of a dating game, because they're interviewing you, but you should really be interviewing them for all the things I mentioned before about their leadership, their financials, the performance of their system. But they're looking to you to see how motivated you are to succeed. How willing are you to follow their system? And I've seen a lot of franchisor applications say, they ask you, what do you think a franchise is? And how do you think you would operate in a franchise? That's one of the very first things they ask you in the application. And what they're looking for there is, do you have a good understanding of what a franchise is? And are you willing to follow the rules, as I mentioned before? Can you prove to them that you've done some level of homework? Did you know something about the brand How passionate are you about the brand? Because if you can't be passionate about it, it's going to be hard for you to be passionate about, presenting those products or services to your customers. And then your own character, because there are lots of things that um, a franchisee could do that impacts the franchisor. Are you selling those carrot cake cupcakes in your store you're not supposed to? Are you uh, not putting all your sales in the POS system, because that's actually how they track your sales and take their royalties? Um, are you misrepresenting the value of your business that you might be selling because you don't want to pay them a certain percentage or whatever their transfer fee is? Example of that is I met with a franchisee and I was talking to him about um, buying his location. And he said to me, "Hey, um, do you, do you know that my franchise agreement, I have a really high transfer fee. So if you decide to buy my franchise, then I'm going to just say I sold it to you for a lot less so that you wouldn't have to pay as much." That spoke to character to me. And immediately my daughters and I said, I don't even want to buy your business, because if you're willing to cheat the franchisor out of something that you've already signed up and you're contractually liable to, I don't even know what I'm walking into that you've also cut corners and been short on. So franchisors really look for that too. So capital link and credit, your experience, your enthusiasm, your character, these are all things that they look for to say, this would be a great candidate to come into our system. So the qualification process, I kind of touched on this already, your net worth, because it could be a large initial investment, they would typically set the minimum net worth based on the investment that you'll have to make. So each one of my brands, as an example, have different, they all have different net worth. I started with Tropical Smoothie. That was the lowest investment. And so obviously I had to have a lower net worth to do that one. VO was my most expensive investment, and I have to have a higher one for that. And that really, it starts with you, but it also ends with you. And what I mean by that is your franchise agreement will have requirements for you. Like if you're going to sell, the franchisor has to approve the person that you're selling to. So I just can't say I'm selling to Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith over here, because they're going to evaluate them with the requirements that they evaluated you on. And so whatever your net worth or your minimum cash available is, then they are going to apply that to the next person. So that's where it makes a big difference, not just for you coming into the system, but as you exit the system. We talked about credit score already, and we've talked about cash. So that cash that you need to have on hand is for the franchise fee, and those fees are all over the place. They're getting more expensive day by day. We talked about the working capital. That's the things that you would need both to support yourself, but also for your business. Your loan payment will be starting, your rent will be there, you'll have payroll, you've got to buy supplies if that's the type of business you're in. And so those things have to be paid for as you ramp. So they want to make sure you have good money there available. You've got to build out a space, potentially buy equipment. So all that stuff is there. So the process, as I mentioned before, we've already talked about selecting that brand, identifying a brand that interests you. So once you do that, you can begin contacting the franchise development arm of that franchise, and they will immediately reach out to you, I promise you, because they are salespeople and their goal is to get your check as fast as possible, as long as you look good on paper. And that is absolutely true, no matter what they tell you. So when you go on the path, you'll probably remember me saying, she said they wanted my money right away, and they do. But you have to complete the application. We talked a little bit about that. You'll fill out a personal financial statement, and then they will circle back with you and say, have further conversation. The next step is a critical one, because you really can't move forward without this document. It is the Bible of that brand, and it is required by the U.S. government. And that is that you receive and you have an opportunity to review the franchise disclosure document, or it will be frequently just referred to as the FDD. Now, this document is thick. All of mine are between 300 and 400 pages long. So it's not for the faint-hearted. I read through a few pages and I'm like, oh, I got to get a lawyer right away. So normally what I do now is I will still read it, but I also know where to go through first to see if I'm going to proceed. But I have an attorney who actually does this service to work with you to go through and explain everything in layman terms to you, what you're going to be required to sign up for. What breach means, just everything, and that's all in there. But important information that you're going to find in there is, are there any lawsuits against the franchisor? And remember, I said you want to be evaluating them too. Like, have they been sued by franchisees? What for? What was the outcome of the legal action? You're going to get information about all the leadership, what their background looks like. They have to disclose to you their financials as a franchisor. What type of revenue are they getting in? What are the sources of their revenue? What does their balance sheet look like? And they have to give you an annual profit and loss statement so that you have the information that you need to make a good decision. They have to give you a statement of a range of fees that will be required for everything to get this particular brand open. And it's from legal, accounting, construction, equipment, signage, all types of things. So they have each one of those things categorized. And so you can get an idea about what it might cost you from the low end to the high end. And the way they do that is we just had to turn in, because we did 2 projects last year. So each of the development projects that we do, we are required to give them at the end of that period how much it costs us to get open. And so they collect all that data from all the folks that have opened, and then they have to share that in the FDD so that anybody looking prospectively at it can get a good range of what it will cost to open for them. It gives you the names and contact phone numbers for everybody that is in the system right now, so that you have an opportunity to reach out to those folks and do the due diligence and ask them questions specifically about their business. And there are things that a franchisee can answer for you that a franchisor can't answer. And those things are, how much money did you make? How much are you spending on payroll? What does your rent look like? So a franchisor is prohibited by the government in saying those things, because it could be construed as a promise to you that you will be successful. So they can't answer those for you. So they give you the names of everybody who is in the system right now, their contact phone numbers, and you can reach out to them. They also give you the names and phone numbers of people who have exited the system. And I would encourage you to call them too. So each time we go to look at a brand, we split up and we say, how many phone calls are we going to make up between the 3 of us? And we pick people on the list to call for current people and people that have left the system. Why did you leave? And sometimes it's for a good reason. I got a divorce, I just didn't like it anymore. I sold it, or I had a disagreement with the brand. But every piece of data is going to be important for you as you evaluate, is this the right brand for you? And you may go through this several times before you land on the one that really does work. But I do encourage you to kind of use that information about the franchisor, the finances, and to make those phone calls, because that is the only way, one, that you're going to be able to get a realistic idea of how much money you can make in this system, and what some of the, I'll say a range of the different types of fees that you might have to pay. You can also find out from a franchisee, are there any restrictions? Like, do you have any leeway at all on something as basic like picking your credit card processor? That's a fee that varies. And I can tell you in all 3 of my brands, I don't. And I know that the fee that I pay to take credit cards from my customers is higher than anything I could probably go and negotiate on my own. But they have their own deals that they've made across the country with specific vendors. And these franchisors get money back, lots and lots and lots and lots of rebates, most of which they don't share with you. So that is kind of a negative piece there. But I don't, an existing franchisee can tell you, oh no, you have to use their credit card processor, and this is what I pay for this. Or, you know, you have to use this equipment provider, but I've been able to find a cheaper price over here. So have those conversations to be able to do that. And that truly is part of the due diligence that you have to go through to decide. I mentioned before, absolutely having someone with legal expertise take a look at that franchise document for you, so that you also understand those obligations for you as a franchisee, because it's pretty extensive, and you want to always make sure that you are clear about what you're signing up for. And if you are deemed to be in breach, what are the ramifications for that? Do you have, like, for example, if you found to be, I know, violating the brand, let's just say they said you had to remodel your store within 12 months and it's 17 months and you haven't done it yet. What can they do? Can they terminate your franchise agreement? Can they make you sell? Can they fine you? If they're going to fine you, you know, what's your cure period? How long will it take for you to be able to get back in good graces with them? All of those things are also going to be very important. And then once you kind of get through that, the franchise disclosure document gives, it's called a waiting period. So that, you know, if you decide you're so excited about this brand, you're ready to write that check right now, the government says, not now, you've got to wait. And so that cooling off period, so to speak, is to allow you time to do exactly what I just talked about. Talk to your your professionals, whether that be, you know, financial, legal. Talk to existing franchisees doing your due diligence. And you typically have to wait 14 days before you can actually give them a check. So the government does that to protect you from yourself, because sometimes you'll get hyped. You're really just so excited about the idea. You think you can make a lot of money in it. It would be something you'd be like to do. And they say, that's nice, but you still have to wait. And so when you get that franchise disclosure document, they have to mark the date that you signed it, and they know that they can't ask you for any money until after that period has passed. But they are also still working towards getting that check out of you. So while they're giving you that franchise disclosure document to read and acknowledge, they're trying to schedule you as soon as possible for what all the brands mostly call Discovery Day. They're changing the name a little bit now. Some of the brands are calling it Meet the Team Day. But what that period is they invite you either virtually or to their corporate location for a series of sales presentations about, they talk about the brand. They have the various leaders talk to you about what the process looks like, from construction to marketing. They'll have all of them do a presentation. They typically will take you to a location so that you can see the business in action, introduce you to a local franchisee, or they may have someone come in, and that is to all get you comfortable in person, versus everything you've been doing up until this date is probably a phone call application. You know, sign this, that you received your FDD, and now they have you, you know, I like to say, on their turf. And it really is a sales day. So I give you that warning ahead of time. That's what it's designed to do. So that by the time you leave, that franchise salesperson is going to have a gauge as to whether or not you're going to sign, and you're close to the ending of your cooling off period in your franchise disclosure document, or whether they've got to do a little bit more work. And so if you decide from going to Discovery Day, you want to move forward, you've passed the time that the government has for you to wait on your franchise disclosure document, then you would then sign your franchise agreement and pay the fee. Now, I would like to say, before you do that, part of that due diligence was you would also have had an attorney to take a look at not just the FDD, but the FDD has as a part of it already. So you will have it, the actual franchise agreement that you'll sign. So as I mentioned, the attorney that I use, she does an overview first of, here's all the things you need to be aware of in the FDD. Then, because the franchise agreement is included in that, she says, okay, here are some things here. And then we are already starting long before we get to discovery day of things that we don't like, that we like to ask for some change to the franchisor. Now, I'll caveat that by saying that 99% of what's in the franchise agreement you can't change, but there are a few things you can modify. Radius of where you have your protection, meaning they can't put another location near you. You can change some of the wording around, if you wanted to ask for things like, could you delay your spend on marketing and things like that. So just a few things, but not most things you can't change. But we would already know that ahead of time, so that by the time we sign the franchise agreement, for us, we've already negotiated those things up front, and then you just pay. And then everything kicks into high gear at that point, because as I mentioned before, the goal of the franchisor is to have as many doors open as quick as possible. So they will stay on you like no other about your development time, how quickly can you get open. And the things that I have in this last box all determine how quickly you can get open, because one, they have to approve your real estate site selection. In the current market that we're in, the landlords are absolutely insane. Some of the things that they ask for in order to lease you your property. I mean, I'm working on a deal right now where the landlord actually said, when you sell your business, I want you to give me 15% of it. And I'm like, well, why does that make sense? Because I paid you the whole time rent that we've been here. I'm not going to give you 15% of my business if I sell it. And so I may not rent that space. So that means I'm delayed again, and I'm on to the next. And I'm probably on like 3 or 4 different deals right now that have fallen down on stuff like that. So the real estate site selection is there, and there's a whole team that will work with you to find the right site for that brand. So in my case, with all of the brands that I'm in, they all like the same type of real estate. So in any shopping center, I could probably have a tropical smoothie, a VO, and a Hand and Stone, because they all like to be near Target. They like to be near a high-end grocer like Wegmans or Whole Foods or Harris Teeter. They like to be around women lifestyle brands like an Athleta or an Orange Theory or things like that. So all 3 of the brands that I'm in all look for the same thing, and they call that a Class A type real estate. So there's a team that will help you do that. They will introduce you to all of their approved financing people. You don't have to use those people. You can go out and get your own financing. That's a whole nother topic that I could go into. Is very detailed in terms of how you can actually finance your franchise. And then they also have a group that works with you through construction. And every brand is different in terms of if they have someone that holds your hand, or if they have you do a lot of the work yourself. So some of my brands, I have a construction project manager that does a lot of work for me. They help evaluate the bids. They give me, advice on which vendors to go with. And then there's others where I have to do all the work myself. So I had to learn that part. I'm a technology person. I'm not a builder, but I've learned to become one. And I know what questions to ask now, because I've had different experiences with different brands. So you've got a team that's going to help you get through that process to get your architectural drawings done if you're doing that type of business, help you navigate the local landscape in terms of getting your permits, etc. So you have help with that. And then you have a whole team that's there to train you before you open. So most brands are going to give you franchisee training long before you're even open. And that's to familiarize you with the brand, operating procedures, what it takes to be successful in the brand. And depending on the brand, it could be a week or more. So we had a week-long training, and then one of my brands was a week-long training, and then with Tropical Smoothie, you had to work in stores for about 2 months so that you knew how to operate. So I worked in a lot of some of my closest friends now, stores in the brand, serving smoothies, prepping food, etc., because that was required. And every brand has different things there, but they help you get ready to open, help you with evaluating your staff and things like that. and everything that you need to prepare for opening. The marketing, the PR, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the journey, and then your doors open, and then the fun starts. Um, so I said I wanted to talk about things, the words of wisdom, and I've honed the first one down. I won't beat that horse anymore, but doing your homework. And the other one is to not invest on financial potential alone. Um, you can look at something and say, okay, yeah, I could make a lot of money doing this. It meets, my financial goals. But what if you don't like it? And it's not something that, excites you. Um, is that something that, you would really want to put your investment in? I talked about having an exit plan before you start. What does that look like for you? For me, our goal has been that we want to uh, build a number of stores. We're targeting a certain net income because that allows us to be able to sell much higher. And then my daughters will and my grandchildren can do what they want because I'll probably be somewhere on the beach. But that's kind of our exit plan there. So our exit plan involves volume, which is why we're expanding in the manner that we are, is volume and operating good stores that return good investment so that it is attractive to a seller. And that's a whole nother topic there in terms of what's going on in franchising with private equity firms buying you out and things like that. But it's a really big topic right now. Aligning yourself with a support team. You really cannot do this alone. And there are certain things that you cannot rely on your franchisor to do for you. One, because they are prohibited from a legal perspective. The government says that they can't be a joint employer with you, meaning they can't dictate who you hire, what your policies are, etc. So you can't really ask them for advice like that because they would be breaching that requirement. But surround yourself with a good lawyer, ideally someone who understands franchising because they know and speak that language, and they can help you navigate through the legal aspect of buying and operating a franchise. Someone for accounting, if you're not good at that, find someone who is, so that you know where your money is going, and learn about, finance. Banks want to know about it. They're going to ask you about it. If you ask for more money and you're looking to borrow, they want to know how you have performed. What does your, profit and loss statement look like? And then the last two is just be patient. If you're starting a business that requires, development, your time is not going to be your time. You can have a goal that you'll be open by a certain period, but I can pretty much assure you most times you won't meet it. And it won't be because of anything that you have done. It's all things that are outside of your control. My last project, we were delayed for 3 months opening over a water fountain in Prince William County. We wanted something fancy like the new water fountains, we can fill a bottle, nicer aesthetically to look at. And the county said no. And then we said, well, why? Because I always do that. Well, because it's in our code. Well, can I work around the code? Yes. Fill out an application. We did that. They approved it. And then once the plans went through, then the plumbing people rejected it anyway. And that took a whole 3 months. So it's silly stuff like that. So be patient and enjoy the ride, more importantly. I mean, I really love what I do. I thought I loved being in technology and doing all of that stuff, but I do love now every day I get to impact lives, whether that be my customers or the people that work with me. So it can really be a really nice thing for you and for your family. So here's my contact information here. Always happy to chat with people who are looking, because what I didn't mention is that within those 851,000 franchises that are out there, we represent about 5%. We meaning people of color. So we are sorely underrepresented in franchising. I go to conferences, sometimes 3,000-4,000 people. It might be 25 of us in there. And so personally, that's why my daughters and I are so passionate about talking to people that look like us, to say, this is something, if we can do it, you can do it too. So happy to help answer any questions that you might have.
Wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Toya, for this wonderful 45 minutes of excellence in sharing and giving us just a snippet, because I know you and I've discussed, and there's so much that you could learn and share with us, but your experience has just spoken volumes tonight. So much so, you've had over 90 plus individuals on a Friday night who are here to hear this great beneficial information. So, before we move further and we go to our questioning, I would like us to bring up that poll one more time. And this is now an opportunity for us to answer the poll question before we go into the questions that are in our chat. And what we will do is when we get to the questions in our chat, we have Deshawn who will be sharing with us that information, and we're going to have Toya answer your questions. And of course, we want to make sure that we are respectful of your time and on our ending time this evening. So we will move swiftly through the questions. And again, you can reach out to Toya if you have any additional questions or need some follow-up on your question. So here's the poll. So the question is, what percentages of franchises are still in business after 2 years? Is it 15%, 65%, 92%, or is it 100%? So take a few moments to answer those questions. And then we're going to share exactly what the answer is to the question. And we love these metrics, by the way, because it's very, very helpful to understand, what you all are thinking, and then to actually get answered the question. So with that, let's see if we've got some responses here. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a look here at our responses. So we have now, the numbers have changed. 15% say there's 35% of us here who say 15%. There's 43% who say 65%. There is 22%, which represents 10 of us, 10 among us, who say 92%, and 0 say 100%. I'm going to share the results here. Now, I will tell you all, you may be shocked at this, you may not be shocked. So for those folks who said 92%, pat yourselves on the back, because franchise statistics show that 92% of franchises are still in business after 2 years. 85% of franchises are still in business after 5 years. So what does this say about generational wealth and legacy building? I mean, it says a lot. So this is just something we all need to kind of take note of. So again, for those 10 people who did respond with that, thank you, because you are correct. So we now kind of have an understanding as to why Toya is a multi-franchise owner who has been, again, successful at doing what she does. So now we're also going to put in the queue while we are answering questions. Please fill out the evaluation. We cannot stress as a committee more that our desire is to understand what it is that you want to know. So I am going to put that in the chat while we bring Deshawn on with Toya to answer the questions. And by the way, for those who answer questions, there might be something special. We'll see if you ask. All right, let's bring on Deshawn for questions.
Thank you. A little technical difficulty there. Thank you so much, Soror Evans, for that phenomenal presentation. You make us so proud of what you have accomplished. I'm going to go through some of these questions. We had quite a few, actually, so bear with us. Let's see.
Okay.
So remodeling costs, I know you addressed that a little bit. Someone asked how they are handled. And when a brand requires updates and renovations over time, how are those handled?
They're handled by the franchisee. So in your franchise agreement, you're going to have that you will agree that you will do the required remodels, and then they typically will give you what their time frame will be. So they'll say we will refresh within 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, so you know that's what you will have to sign up for, and you pay for it if that's the question.
And the
As far as
franchisee pays for it.
yes,
Yes. How do
so
you
you have to kind of
evaluate?
set money aside for that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So be prepared, plan ahead. How do you evaluate which franchise you invest in? And you addressed that a little bit. Did you want to expound on that? I know it's
Yeah, I think I
healthy
had
related.
covered that because
Yeah.
it's so personal. I mean, you have to invest in like an example I mentioned about don't go into business because it makes a lot of money. So my youngest daughter swore that we should be in daycare. And so, and me and the other one said, no way. And our
Wow.
operating agreement as partners say you have to have 2/3 majority for any decision to move forward. So she wanted to convince at least one of us to do this for her. So she went out and did all the due diligence. And one of those was those phone calls I talked about. And she
Oh,
talked to
wow.
several owners and she says, what happens when your teachers call out and they say, we have to go in and teach the class? And she texted us she was on the due diligence call and she said, okay, I'm done. But if you look at daycares like the Goddards and the Primroses and all of those, they cost a lot to build, but they make a lot of money. But again, if you don't want to go in and be the daycare teacher for the day, that's probably not the one for you. So it is very personal.
And is the franchisor covering the cost for the site that your business is going to occupy or to be, or is that covered in the cost to start the franchise?
No, it's definitely your cost. So the only thing that I mean, the franchisor is taking your check, as I mentioned. So whatever that franchise fee is, you're paying them that. Everything else, it really is your business. And so you've got to pay everything, your legal fees, your accounting fees, construction costs, equipment, and all of that is when I mentioned the FDD kind of outlines that. That is your item there that you look at where they tell you, here's everything that's going to be required of you to get your franchise open. And that is all costs that you build into your own business plan. That's what you would talk to the bank about um, if you're borrowing money, but those costs all belong to you. It is your business.
You actually just answered the next question regarding upfront costs. But there's a follow-up question to that. Are there any unforeseen costs? Were there any costs you were surprised by or didn't consider?
Oh, always. I mean, you have your budget that you're working on. But there's always something that comes up. I just mentioned, the water fountain, and that costs me time. It costs me change orders with my architect and the contractor to go back now and take out the cute water bottle filler and go buy those ugly uh, water fountains that nobody uses. My granddaughter plays in the water whenever she goes to the location, but nobody's drinking out of water fountains anymore. And we serve bottled water or filtered water, so we didn't need it. That costs. Another spa I just built in Sterling is underneath an event center, so I wasn't anticipating to have to pay there. We had to pay an extra $8,000 just for extra insulation to quiet the building below. So there's always things that come up, and generally when you're building your budget out, you're going to have contingency stuff in there. What things that you're not expecting to come up that might come up.
The next question asks, how much autonomy are you granted in setting business metrics for your location or locations?
So you have a high degree of autonomy in terms of setting your own metrics because you have your own goals of what you want to do with your business. There are certain things that a brand will focus on, and those are generally around customer satisfaction. So every one of my brands has targets for how you engage with your customers, what they like to see there. But outside of, how much revenue you're making, what your profit margins are and all those others. Again, you're an independent business owner. You just happen to be operating under a franchise. So we set our own sales goals. We work with our teams to cover metrics that are important to us for each business. We're generally tracking the cost of goods sold. We look at our labor spend. We're looking at how much we spend on marketing. Generally, they'll have a minimum marketing spend that you have to do
Okay.
every week, and it's based on your previous week's sales. But you can also go above and beyond that if you're trying to drive your business.
So we had a question about the FDD, which is the franchise disclosure document. And so hopefully that answers that question. What is it? But when you read the ones that when you were researching and looking for the business, did it talk to partners, that you should have partners? Was there any information from the FDD around whether it was better to have partners or not? How did you all decide to do that? And does having partner change the capital needs?
So the FDD does not address that. The FDD is really designed as the franchisor has to be transparent about their brand. And as I mentioned, it's from everything from leadership, lawsuits, what it costs um, to build. They'll give you the top 25% revenue producers, the bottom revenue, so you can kind of get a good on your own average of how much money you could possibly make. The people that are in the brand, out of the brand, that's what it's designed to do. So they can't direct you as to how you will have your business or how you will hold your business. So it doesn't say anything like that. And having partners doesn't change the capital required to do the business, but it does change your investments. If you have we're three partners, so me and my daughters all put up the same amount of money.
Hmm.
And when we on our first two projects, we've been using the profits from the business now to fund everything else that we've done,
Mm.
but we had to fund the first two with our down payments. And so that helped because now, I had two other people helping me to do the initial cash injection.
So the next few questions also come from the franchise disclosure document or the franchisor. So someone asks, does the franchisor, let's see, the franchisor. Oh, did the franchisor state your interest, or the bank? I'm trying to read the franchisor stating your interest or the bank for the loan? Who did you approach first, the bank or the franchisor?
Oh, I would say it could be both.
Hmm.
But if you're talking to a bank about a loan, you're really just getting general information at this point. If you don't have a specific brand because you won't have any cost structure, you won't know what you need to borrow. But it might just be good and I always say relationships are everything. So building relationships with banks, talking to them early before you even find one to say, I'm thinking about going into franchising. I'd like to know, what your bank requires to finance. And what you'll
Hmm.
find with some of the banks is they have their own franchises that they like more than others. So there's
Hmm.
some banks that will only finance restaurants. There's some banks who won't touch personal services or anything like that. So it's a good idea to kind of just start having conversations because it also helps you to understand how you're going to have to present yourself to the bank when you need the money. So starting early is never a bad thing, but certainly you should be starting with the franchisors for the particular brands that you're looking to invest in. You have to talk to them first because if you don't like them or they don't like you, you might not need a loan for them for that particular one. But always have relationships with banks. Trust me,
And
I talk to everybody.
speaking of money, did they choose Thursdays as your day, or did you pick
I
that?
don't
How
know
does
how
that day
Thursday
pick?
came about, and I don't know if everybody does that. I just know that all three of my franchisors, they hit my account every Thursday, and it's
What
for
was
the previous week's sale.
for the previous week's sales?
Mhm.
Someone asked, what was your biggest challenge you faced your first year, and how did you overcome it?
Um, the biggest challenge I had the first year was trying to manage keeping that good paying corporate job and trying to do franchising at the same time. Um,
I can
let's
relate
just
to
say I
that.
had to be a little creative some days over others and had to work sometimes a lot late into the night, either because I had to catch up on emails and work that was for the people that were paying me, because that was always important, that I was not gonna not give them what they were paying for. But also it was because we were new to the business. I would get up every morning at 5:30 and go to my location. I happened to buy one that was close to where my office was, but I would go from 5:30 till about
Mm.
8:45, go in the bathroom, change my clothes, and then go to work.
Oh, wow.
My daughter was a pharmaceutical rep, and that happened, and her territory was in the area. So she would get off at about 2:30 or 3, and she'd go and stay until near closing. And then I would sometimes go back at closing, or one of us would go back at closing, because we wanted to understand every aspect of the business. And that was exhausting, quite frankly. But it worked out.
But impressive. And it sounds like you had a plan.
Uh, Listen, most recently, I have been talking to some folks who are not doing well in one of my brands. And when I say about, doing your due diligence and figuring out how much time you have, my heart goes out to them when I talk to them and I hear how much money they have invested in a business, and that they're about to lose because they're not motivated to run the business. It was more than they thought it was going to be. They didn't, ask the right questions going in. And I don't want anybody to be in that situation where they're they're in more than they should be, because they didn't kind of think about it, what the level of commitment, they didn't think about it, or they didn't ask the right questions to know the level of commitment that would be involved. Maybe it's just one guy I'm thinking about right now. He's invested almost $2 million, and he's miserably losing money,
Oh,
miserably.
wow.
Um, yeah, it's pretty sad.
Well, and that's the next question. How long did it take you to become profitable?
Every every brand is different. Um, so what you want to do is, so you kind of look and see what your break even would be based on, kind of what you've had to spend to get open, and you kind of work your way back there based on how your sales are going. So, something like a tropical smoothie, it's a fast break even because the doors open, the registers ring, and it's a cash type of business, right? If I look at my spas, very, very different. It takes a lot longer time to become profitable, because all of those businesses are membership based. And so your revenue is tied to how quickly you can grow your membership. So it takes a little bit longer. Probably my Hand and Stones, it took about 9 to 12 months. I have one that's brand new that's struggling right now. So got some work to do over there. My VO, we ramped very, very fast over
Ooh.
there. So we were able to be profitable in about 4 months,
Oh,
um,
wow.
over there. That was surprising to us because we hadn't planned for that. We planned for a longer ramp, and we actually beat that.
Well, it sounds like you all are super successful. You've figured out the kinks. The last question that I'll ask, because you have all of this experience, I'm sure you'll be able to deal with it. But things happen in business, and the question is around contingency plans. How does the franchisor help you plan for issues in weather, COVID thing, emergencies, particularly since you all are people facing. There could be, issues that come up. And does the franchisor help with contingency plans? How do you react to it as a franchisee?
No. Remember, I said that otherwise it would be considered joint employers. So they can't tell you anything
Ah,
about contingency planning, et cetera. You have to kind of do that on your own. I will say that during COVID, what they were able to do is to uh, help figure out operational procedures, if you were to be open. So Tropical Smoothie, we were open on Friday, and by Monday, everybody thought every restaurant was shut down. And so, and because every location, every state has something different rules, Tropical Smoothie did kind of say, yep, you guys can be open. Here's some guidelines. Wear gloves even when you're not supposed to. Do a shield. So they kind of give you operational things to do there. Um, Hand and Stone, that project was delayed because of COVID. And when I opened, we were still in COVID. And so they just gave you guidelines, have your service providers wear a mask, those kinds of things. But you really have to, I can't stress enough that it is your business. So you have to kind of think through what you need to do to be able to handle and weather any of those storms. I mean, I told you I go and beg for money all the time. So I was out looking for every grant program during COVID, who has money to give so I can stay open, keep these folks employed, et cetera. I'd find that information. I'd share it with my franchise colleagues. They would share things back with me because these were things that we could not get from the franchisor. So you have to do it for yourself.
You really are, you're a business owner. You are a
Yes,
business owner with support.
with support and an operational plan. That's a great way to summarize it.
And we'll end on that note. I appreciate your time, and the evaluations are
Thank you
in
so much.
chat. Thank you so
I
much.
really appreciate the opportunity, and I hope there's something that I've said that sparked an interest in someone on the call, that you would at least consider something like franchising as an opportunity for you. It really is a great way to have some autonomy and freedom and create generational wealth for yourself.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And Deshawn, wonderful job with questions. And to our attendees, excellent job with asking your questions. We really do appreciate it. We are now going to bring on two of our wonderful leaders. We have our Program Planning and Development Chair, who will be joining us this evening, Regina Ware, and she will be followed by our leader, Helene Fisher, who is the president of the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Without further ado, Regina.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Sora Evans, it's been a pleasure to hear your story. I'm always in awe of the path that you have set forward with your daughters, and thank you for sharing that with us tonight. I did see a question about your business location, so we can try to get that shared with the if Madam President thinks that's appropriate, we could get that shared with all the attendees so that they can visit. They want to visit in your locations and contribute to your business. So this was very timely with the state of the world, like having those different plans in place or a plan to try to implement during uncertain times. So we appreciate it, and more to come for Financial Fortitude. So I'll turn it over to Helene Fisher, our president for our chapter.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening to hear from our chapter member, Toya Evans. Toya, everybody says they're proud of you. We are so proud of you. We've been watching you and your business grow, and you make this look easy. I don't know how difficult it truly is behind the scenes, but you have made this look easy. And all of you should know that she does a lot of this speaking in the franchise community for a lot of different individuals who are looking to build their franchises. And she also supports those who have their franchises in place, and she is the role model for a franchise owner. So we constantly are proud of you. And we're excited again about this timely topic, as Ms. Ware has indicated, that this is really a great time to consider something like this with all the different changes going on in the world. And so we hope that this session and our entire Financial Fortitude Fridays series meets your expectations. Toya, again, thank you so much for your generosity with speaking to us today. The information that you shared oftentimes comes with a fee for those who participate. And so thank you so much for your generosity, and what a wealth of information. And as we noted, we had over 90 participants this evening, and I'm sure that each one of them appreciated the information that you shared. And we all have a better understanding of franchising, and your insights into the process really kind of help demystify some of those elements. So thank you again. And to our guests this evening, thank you for attending our session. Please remember to complete the evaluation and let us know what you think about tonight's event. And down at the bottom, it asks, what else would you like to hear about or learn more about? So please share that information so that we can develop the programming that means something to you and that resonates with our audience. And we'll keep the Zoom link open for a few minutes so that you can collect that evaluation information in the chat. And if you want to learn more about our chapter, the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, please look for us on social media, on YouTube, and visit our website at fcacdst.org. And with that said, we wish you fortitude in building a strong financial foundation, and we bid you good night and have a pleasant Friday evening. Thank you all.